Today I want to talk to you guys about front end weight options when you're doing your arrow build for the year. Front end weight can come in just two ways, your inserts or your points. When you're trying to achieve a certain front end weight, is it better to go with a heavy insert or a heavy point? This video is going to carry on a bit from last week's video where I talked about the different types of inserts and the materials that different inserts are made. And the answer to the question I posed at the beginning of this video lies in that. In general, if you're looking to increase your front end weight, it's better to go with a heavy insert rather than a heavy point. Because let's say you want to have 200 grains total up front, which is a lot, but a lot of guys do that type of stuff. So let's just use that as an example. You want 200 grains total up front. You could shoot your standard, 21, 22 grain aluminum insert and then 175 grain field point. Or you could shoot 100 grain insert and 100 grain field point. What do you think is going to be better? Shooting the heavier insert is going to mean that you're using a better material. Inserts come in aluminum, stainless steel, brass, titanium. All of them are really strong, high quality materials with the exception of aluminum. Aluminum is not a good material to use for most insert applications because it bends. Now, where you have an insert that's completely embedded within the arrow shaft, like a hit insert, there aren't too many issues that can come up with that. But if you have a two-piece insert system, a half out, or any insert that has a component of it that is not inside the arrow shaft, if it's aluminum, it's extremely subject to bending, and it probably will over time. I see it all the time. So if you're trying to achieve a certain front end weight, it's better to go with a heavier material, stainless or brass, and then stick with the standard 100 or 125 grain point. Now, titanium's a really cool option because it's super strong and quite light. It's much lighter than stainless steel and brass and much stronger than really everything else on the list. It comes at a cost, of course, but if you're willing to put the money in, that can be a really cool option to get a super strong arrow without going crazy high FOC. So where does the value of having all these different ranges of broadhead weights come in? I mean, at Tooth of the Arrow, we make 100 all the way to 175 in 25 grain increments. So where is that value? It comes down to a few things, but the big one is fine tuning. You can't possibly create a perfect arrow every time just by selecting insert weight and then shooting 100 grain broadhead, because inserts come in standard weights. There is a broad range of weights you can find among different brands and different materials, but you're never going to be able to pinpoint it to exactly what you want just because inserts are manufactured to a certain weight. So having different weights of broadheads gives you a little bit of leeway in that you can add or take away 25 grains here or there, just to fine tune the front end weight of your setup a little bit better. But in general, if you have the option to add more weight in an insert versus in a point, that's a better way to go because you're going to be using a stronger material by doing so. The other reason that we make broadheads in different weight ranges that comes in really handy for me is if I want to change my arrow build year to year by just a small amount. So right now my bow is at 70 pounds. Let's say I wanted to drop down to 65 for whatever reason, or even 60 for that matter, but I don't want to go with an entirely new arrow build. Well, I have to compensate somehow in my arrow to make the spine matching work out. My arrows are perfectly built with 100 grain points right now, spined to my bow at 70 pounds. If I go down to 60 pounds, now that arrow is going to be way too stiff for what I'm shooting. And one way that I can weaken that spine back down to a spine matched level would be to increase front end weight, which is where I could then add a 125 grain point or 150 grain point to then bring that spine back to matching the output that my bow has. But to sum all this up, when you're looking at building a new arrow and you're trying to achieve a certain front end weight, start with a standard 100 grain broadhead and try to find an insert that fits your needs that isn't aluminum first. 100 grains are also really nice to shoot because if you're ever way out in the boonies and you're in a pinch and you need broadheads or you need field points or whatever, first of all, 90+% of guys are shooting 100 grains. So if there's other guys at camp, it's likely you can just borrow some or take some from a buddy. And if you're in a really small town and there's only one place that sells anything archery, they're going to have 100 grains no matter what. They might not have your 150s or your 175s. So It's kind of like the reason a lot of guys like shooting 7mm rifles is because ammo is everywhere versus, you know, my dad has a 30 Nosler now that he has to get ammunition custom built because it's just so rare. It's the same kind of idea with 100 grain field points and broadheads. They're just everywhere. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and thank you so much for watching.